Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
If you're a small business owner who doesn't have enough time in the day and you don't have information to make informed decisions, then it might be time to outsource. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Steve Dawson is the founder and CEO of invoice financing company Grapple. His business was growing fast, and Steve was determined not to let the finance side of things tie up his time when his real skills lay in building the business. But money's money, and Steve needed a highly efficient finance function. He was capital raising, he needed to be spot on with compliance, and he needed accurate, up-to-date reporting at his fingertips. His solution? He turned to the experts at Mazars. Now everything's in the cloud. We'll find out more about that in a moment. And Steve couldn't be happier, getting on with what he does best, which is grow the business. And those experts? Shawnee Hussey is a manager in Mazars' cloud accounting team. She specialises in the use of technology to streamline business and finance process. And our host for the day is Matthew Ashley, accounting and outsourcing partner at Mazars, who asks Shawnee first, what is outsourcing?
So that's where you look to outsource any or all of your finance processes. So that can be anything from your accounts payable through to your payroll, right up to virtual CFO services. So the benefit of that is that you can scale that service up or down as you need and as the business grows. So it can be really flexible and allows you to have the full benefit of a full finance function just for a fraction of the cost.
Is there a particular size of client that it applies to, or is it fairly open-ended?
Yeah, it's definitely open-ended. It's relevant right from startup through to a mature business. So for a startup business, as I say, because it's a scale-up, scale-down type approach, it's not just one single cost for a package. So for a small startup, you'd be having just a few services to start with. Maybe you just want your accounts payable and your payroll taken care of. And then as the business grows, that's when you want to start seeing more timely management information, full-on board reporting. You may want to have some virtual CFO advice to help you strategically grow your business and help the business to meet its goals. And then if you start to look at the other end of the scale, once the business is maturing, potentially a business owner is starting to look to maybe exit the business. So therefore, they might start scaling down their overheads. So they wouldn't necessarily want the fixed costs of an internal finance function. That way they can start to scale down, scale away, and they could potentially look to then sell that business with an active working external finance function.
And have there been any trends kind of in the last 12 months with COVID, people working from home and different pressures within the workforce?
Yeah, so now that people are getting used to the idea of working remotely and working from home, it's really helped to reduce that kind of resistance to change. And there's a real drive to the cloud, and people are seeing the benefit of that flexibility that you get from being able to set up to work remotely. And businesses are also trying to look at their costs of the business, and they're looking to run a leaner and a more effective finance team.
And Steve, you decided to outsource your finance function for Grapple at an early stage. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I guess there's quite a few reasons. I mean, obviously there's the cost-benefit analysis that always gets done with these sort of things, and it really made sense to us, especially from the ability of having a skill set available for what we need at the time. It's obviously quite hard when you're growing and in the early days to have the right skill set from a finance function internal. So that was a huge part of our decision-making process. And what comes with that, I guess, from our perspective, was the ideas and the ways that we can do things more efficiently as a result of outsourcing. Having that function internal rather than outsourcing, you don't necessarily get access to those sort of ideas and new ways to do things that you would get from the specialised outsourcing, and you can kind of pull in the right skill set at the right time using that function. So that's probably the biggest reason. I kind of look at it from what I was doing sort of pre-outsourcing to post-outsourcing. I found myself a little bit bogged down in the finance side of things with the pressure and time that goes into that sort of side of things of a business. It's critical to have it right, but in a lot of ways, it's not so much a core activity in regards to kind of finding new clients, servicing them, looking after them, employing new people and getting them motivated. There's a lot of things on your mind. The finance side of things, while it's critical, you really want to kind of make sure you're not taking away from that core activities of the business that is needed to keep growing. So yeah, outsourcing was obviously ideal for us. And post doing it, the benefits were there. I found myself having more time for the core activities of the business rather than the stress and, I guess, trying to keep the numbers up to date, really, and getting that right info. So those are probably the biggest reasons about why, yeah.
And I imagine as well that as a company that is growing and expanding quite quickly, you are required to kind of make key management decisions. Was kind of having the ability to outsource also going to give you greater information to make those strategic decisions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've gone through capital raising processes. There's research and development grants that we're a part of. So, and more so on the capital raising side, I mean, you need accurate and reliable information. The decision making of the business in general, you need to be able to have reliable numbers and the right people on call to give you advice about how to do that. I mean, being a growing company, when you're doing capital raisings and there's grants and there's so much, I guess, importance put on the numbers, when really, you know, you want to get out there and kind of build your technology or build your client base and look after them, you've got to get that balance right. And so outsourcing really did that for us, just by having that skill set available. So I could go back into those, what I guess is called these core activities, right? It was a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest, because we needed to focus on growth, the clients, and not on, you know, I guess being compliant from a financial point of view, which is probably, you know, another big thing to talk about is the compliance of the financial, you know, of the finance side of the business.
Yeah, it really is about freeing you up to do what you do best.
Yeah, exactly right.
Once you've made that decision to look at outsourcing your finance function, how does it actually work? What's that actual process entail?
So to start this all out, we just sat down and had a meeting to talk about the business so that I could really get a good understanding of Steve, his business, how everything worked, and also the existing processes that they had in place. So that way we could look at creating a bespoke solution. So, you know, it's not just an out of the box, this is the way we're going to make it fit and just fit your business for this. No, the solution is going to be bespoke for the individual needs of each business.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's pretty much what happened with us. I mean, every business has their specific ways of doing things, or, you know, from a finance point of view, it's always going to be different. And yeah, obviously that onboarding process was really just getting an understanding of our business and, you know, what we require from a management point of view, and making sure that information was what is going to get sort of passed back from the outsourcing function.
And once a kind of an engagement's worked out, is it a kind of a rigid engagement, or has it kind of shifted and moved as the requirements of the business have changed?
Yeah, definitely. We like to keep things flexible because the business changes all the time. The environment changes, you know, due to COVID, everything had to change. Everyone had to change the way that they worked. So we're always keeping things moving, checking in on making sure that we're providing the right services that are relevant to the business, the needs of the business at the time. So if anything changes, we will then change how we're servicing that.
Yeah, and it happened to us quite a few times, right, where I needed, you know, several different bits of advice at different times, and a different skill set was required. And to be able to have that basically instantly is ideal for a company that's growing. So, you know, like I mentioned with the capital raising, being able to have that advice on standby, our R&D time, having that advice on standby, I mean, that sort of stuff is invaluable to a business that's growing quickly.
And Sean, you briefly touched about the cloud. What, from your perspective, being a cloud expert, are the kind of the benefits that you can provide to kind of founders like Steve to make their life easier?
So a lot of the benefits about the cloud is that the information is always available. So, you know, when you have an outsourced finance function, you can make sure that all of your accounting is done on a timely basis, which means the information is available to the business owner live. At any time, Steve can just log into his accounts and he can see how the business is performing. I provided training to Steve so that he knows how to have a look at his own reports, and he can interrogate the data to see how the business is going without just waiting for me to provide him with a report. So that kind of live, timely information helps business owners with better decision making as opposed to just waiting on historical reporting.
Yeah, I'll probably add to that growing quickly, you're not necessarily having quarterly and monthly reports sometimes just isn't what you need, right? It's more about having it as and when you need it. And that's been a huge benefit for us.
And keeping everything in the cloud also just makes it easier, even just to share the information with us. So, gone are the days of keeping all your paper receipts and putting it into a shoebox and then delivering it to your accountant. You can just use technology to directly upload all of that information as soon as you receive it. So it puts less pressure on the business owner to be keeping track of all of that paperwork. You can just send it off and it's gone and it's processed.
Yeah, exactly. The tax time becomes a lot easier, that's for sure, because we've dealt with it during the year, basically. So it makes everything easier, really.
That was Steve Dawson, founder and CEO of Grapple, talking with Matt Ashley and Shawnee Hussey of Mazars. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.